Hello, everyone. My name is LaDavia Drain, and I'm joining you from Amazon Web Services, where I am the global leader for inclusion, diversity, and equity. I'm going to be moderating a panel today on expanding opportunity for Black startup founders. With that, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our panelists. First, we have Denise Quashie. She is from AWS Startups. Welcome, Denise.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And next we have Emmanuel Brown from ChurchSpace, and he's also a Black founder and a part of the AWS Impact Accelerator program. Welcome, Emmanuel.
Glad to be here.
Next, we have Dr. Tope Mitchell from Reflekt. She is a Black founder and a part of the AWS Impact Accelerator program. Welcome, Dr. Mitchell.
Thank you.
All right. With that, we're going to go ahead and start our questions today. I'm really excited to hear from you all. I want to start first with you, Denise. Denise, can you talk to me a bit about the why behind the AWS Impact Accelerator program?
Sure. Thanks, LaDavia. The AWS Impact Accelerator program is a $30 million fund that supports underrepresented founders. Part of my role at AWS is to build global programs for startups. And a few years ago, we realized that there was a gap in curriculum, mentorship, and even cash resources and benefits for underrepresented startups. So we created the Impact Accelerator program, which supports underrepresented founders over a course of 8 weeks, where we provide them with mentorship, business fundamentals, technical fundamentals. We pair them with coaches within AWS, our startup solution architects. And the big benefit to the program is that we provide cash runway. So startups receive $125,000 cash. It is non-equity. We take zero part of their business. And they also receive $100,000 in AWS service credits through our Activate program. So excited to see Tope and Emmanuel both here, who are part of the inaugural Black Founders cohort that wrapped up earlier this year. And right now we're working with women founders who are about to graduate from the program as well, too.
And Denise, just one follow-up question. What will a startup learn in the program? And then also let me know, what will they gain from it?
Yeah, so one of the key criteria we're looking for are startups that are ready to scale their business. So these are individuals that have some sort of an MVP. They're ready to be introduced to investors. They're ready to look at their architecture from a technical standpoint. So one of the key benefits that they walk away with is really kind of fine-tuning their business go-to-market strategies, as well as their fundraising opportunities. So one of the benefits to AWS Startups is we have a whole host of former founders that works for startups. And so we are able to introduce them to connections that maybe they haven't been able to. One of the things that we know with underrepresented startups is that getting access to the right contacts and having warm intros is such a difficult challenge for them. So for us, being able to use our privilege to leverage those relationships and introduce them is a big key component to the program. As far as curriculum goes, it's really curated curriculum based off of where they're at in their business. So while we select 25 startups, the content that's part of it is really there's some baseline pieces about AI, ML, those types of things, but then a lot of the content is really curated based off of where they're at currently in their business. So for example, Tope is really kind of working with AI, machine learning. We're going to probably provide her with a lot more curriculum related to AI and machine learning than maybe somebody building a B2C startup, right? So it's a little bit different, just really kind of based off of what the customer is building.
Okay, very good. Thank you so much. Really comprehensive and such an important program. So now I'm going to turn to Emmanuel. Emmanuel, great to see you today. Let's talk a bit about the program's importance. How has this program changed your business or had an impact on you personally?
Yeah, the AWS Impact Accelerator was pivotal in our growth. As Denise mentioned, we were at this inflection point where we were ready to scale and kind of had these pieces that were supposed to fit really well together in our business and our venture that we didn't really know how to connect the dots. And I think the mentorship that was really important throughout the program helped us to do that. So we spent a lot of time with our solutions architect thinking about the tech side of our platform more deeply. And also our business development mentor really helped us with our go-to-market strategy and that scalability of our venture. So we are now positioned and prepared to do that this coming year. And then also the funding piece, not only the funding that came through AWS, but the introduction to other outside funders was really helpful in our raise as well.
And any personal notes just from you as a founder?
Yeah, I think one thing that's really important when thinking about the momentum around this conversation with funding Black founders is that the energy right around topics like race, DEI are really important. And I think AWS did a really good job of kind of putting action behind their words, right? And what we see in this landscape is at least for me, the energy around these topics and momentum is really appreciated, but there's some nuances and kind of unspoken about things that lie beneath the surface about why Black founders have trouble getting access to capital. And a lot of that is outside of just getting an intro meeting. An intro meeting is great, but there are so many other components and dynamics that need to exist. And I think the AWS Accelerator helped us to think about that holistically and not just focus on, I need to meet an investor, because that's only one part of the puzzle.
Very good. Thank you so much for that. And Dr. Tope, I see that you're nodding your head. What about you?
It's really the same for me. We were at this very odd stage with Reflekt Me where we had a small client and then we got this huge anchor client, right? And so you get this huge anchor client, you're now doing all this compliance, SOC 1 and SOC 2, and it's $25K and takes a month. And then you're like, okay, this is where I fundraise, right? Because I've shown that I can get this international client, all these different things. And, you know, AWS came at that point to really make us focus in, like help us to focus in with these mentors. I mean, there are mentors who work at AWS, but they also exited, you know, they've also worked with startups. And so being able to talk with someone who has seen the messy part of it, has seen the growth component of it, and is working with a similar infrastructure with us being on AWS, it was fantastic as well. Because we're saying, oh, they want to buy data. Oh, well, there's AWS Data Exchange, and just helping us to focus in was really fantastic for us. And then also the help with pitching and talking to angel investors. We got a lot more practice with that. I had some experience with it, but we definitely had in-depth practice with that, and a lot of benefits after demo day. I'm not sure if we'll talk about that later, but we really got some fantastic introductions that are still helping us to literally this day in this moment.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Tope. And Emmanuel, let's talk about your business and the problems you're trying to solve for. Can you talk a bit about that?
Yeah, thanks for the question. The Washington Post coined us as the Airbnb for churches, and we think of ourselves as solving the greatest real estate opportunity of our age. Churches are a top 5 landowner in the United States, and we're helping churches turn their underutilized space into on-demand event, meeting, and commercial kitchen space for local communities. Churches as nonprofits have a really difficult time earning revenue. They're empty about 69% of the week, and the pandemic introduced these really unique market dynamics where churches were financially bleeding, but they were also forced to engage with technology for the first time. And communities, we realize, have a different need for how they use commercial space, specifically when we think about Black and Brown communities, specifically as a part of this conversation. So we're helping to bridge that gap through our marketplace by turning underutilized church space into on-demand event, meeting, and commercial kitchen space.
That is really exciting. I just think about all of the churches who for generations could have used that help. So it's just really good to know that you're now here and you're helping in this way and really building community, which is a great segue into my next question for Dr. Tope. Can you talk to us about the importance of building community, both with the Accelerator program, but then also through the work that you're doing?
Yes, that's exactly it. I mean, with Reflekt Me as a whole, when we founded this company, we were thinking about helping digital buyers to be able to see a reflection of themselves when they shop online, right? And what we found out was that we were actually also helping these fashion and beauty brands to create inclusive communities directly on their product detail page, right? So by having this proliferation of men and women of different sizes and skin tones and hair textures, showing them using the products, showing pictures of them, videos. We were creating this sense of community. And so having that sort of mission, that sort of, company, I'm very community oriented, very inclusivity oriented. And I was just very pleasantly surprised that somehow AWS had put together all these people that I liked and who also were doing these fantastic things to help the community and build up. I've been in an accelerator before, and sometimes, it's super duper helpful. It's awesome, but it's not focused on you building a community. And that's a sort of amorphous, exponentially helpful and positive component of an accelerator that you don't always know that you needed, right? Like we still send each other opportunities. If we've met with an investor that someone else has, we'll have a meeting. We send each other templates. We send each other our data room, documents to help each other to build and grow. So we really lift, and that was hugely impactful for me. It made me pay more attention to the groups that I'm in and making sure that I utilize that component. And like I said, I'm really focused on community anyway, but it just being a part of this program really, how sometimes something has to kick you in the butt and like remind you how important something is. This program really invigorated that in me again, to really focus on community and within these programs, and really uplifting each other and taking out time to do that.
Very good. Thank you, Dr. Tope. Now, this question is both for Dr. Tope and Emmanuel. And Denise, feel free to also jump in to answer this next question. It's about challenges. I think that if we could talk a bit about challenges, our listeners, our audience may be able to really take some things away that can help them with their own business ventures. What are some of the challenges that you've experienced? And let's start with Emmanuel.
Yeah, this is a really important question because there are so many challenges being a Black founder. So I'll try to be succinct. But I think fundamentally, as I alluded to before, the wealth gap is one issue, but I also think the knowledge gap is another issue that we face as Black founders being barred from venture capital. There's a lot of things that we just don't know. And that's why community becomes so important. Because we're able to fill in those gaps. And I don't even like to say underrepresented founders. I like to use the word underappreciated founders, because I really think that's what we are at the end of the day. And one of the biggest challenges that I've seen, because we're solving different problems, we have different solutions, and there's this unconscious bias and things that investors just don't really understand, right? We come from different cultures, which means that we communicate differently, and we have different communities, which means we need different resources. And bridging that gap for investors, I think, is one of the biggest challenges that we face, but also understanding that getting a meeting doesn't mean funding. Right? That's just like one part of the puzzle. There's a lot of preparation that goes in before that. The timing of when you raise and how you raise and whom you raise with is important. The resources and the assets that you need to properly go into a meeting are also important. And a lot of that we got through AWS, but a lot of that we just get from each other in our community, just sharing resources. And I think that's really how, just like historically in our country, we've thrived as a Black community,
Yeah.
right? Kind of unifying with each other and being resilient. So that's just some of the challenges that I see amongst, the multi-layered issues that we face on a regular basis.
Now, Emmanuel, I have to follow up on this because you used the word barred. I mean, literally being barred from the room, barred from the conversation. I wanted to just call that out, and feel free to talk more about that. But I also want to ask you a question around, it seems as though your challenge is you have to do a lot of teaching. So whereas other founders walk into a room and they're pitching and, things happen as they're supposed to, the game, it doesn't seem that it's been changed in any way. For you, you have to teach the people that you're expecting to partner with, but then you're also teaching other founders. So what you've learned from, say, the AWS Impact Accelerator program, you feel as though it's necessary to pass that information along. Can you talk a bit about that tax?
Yeah, I wouldn't consider it a tax necessarily, but I think paying it forward comes with the game, comes with the territory, right? if we're going to make any significant impact in closing the generational wealth gap, we have to do it together. We have to do it through community. It can't be a monkey in a barrel effect. I think it takes all of us to change this, not just AWS from a corporate side and not just Dr. Tope and I from a founder standpoint, but the collective working together to create change is, I really think, how we're going to move the needle forward. Going back to the word bar that I use that word very intentionally because I think it's true. I think the statistics show that less than 3% of venture capital has been directed to Black founders since 2015 till now. And that's intentional, right? Whether it's unconscious or not, I think it takes a very intentional effort to make change and to create change in this space. And that's kind of, my perspective on it.
Very good. Thank you, Emmanuel. Dr. Tope, talk to us about your challenges, the ones that you've experienced.
Yes. So, as we mentioned, when we started off with the Impact Accelerator, we had this anchor client, and you hear stories, just as Emmanuel stated, of founders who can raise off of a napkin, right? So we're bringing in revenue. We have this amazing client. We're expanding in other countries, and we're being talked to, as if we're doing something cute, right? And or being underestimated, as Emmanuel stated. So what was helpful with AWS is that we were respected as founders. We received pitch help, with what are these signifiers? What are these words? What are this cultural capital? What are these actions that we need to exhibit as founders to kind of bridge some of that gap? And it was amazing. I mean, I felt like I was on a TED Talk. We got all kinds of coaching. We were on the stage and doing all this stuff. I sent videos of it to everybody like, that was me. I think my husband cried a little bit because like, you worked so hard. But it was a lot because you pitch so much and you're feeling like, yes, you're like a college kid, like T.I., like swag like a college kid, right? Like I have this venture and I did so much work and I built this team and I got this client. And then you pitch and they're like, whoa, sis, whoa. And it just kind of breaks you down. And you have to learn how to disentangle what is helpful, what is not, how do I vet the investors before I talk to them? I don't have to say yes to every meeting. And then also we received, as Denise mentioned, very curated information. So we got to see what are the pages investors are looking at, when they're clicking on your deck virtually and looking at different pages. And so that was really helpful for us as well. And also talking to investors about, I'm thinking I'm giving you a certain message with this number or with this graph. And I'm not, them as an investor, they may not think that is helpful. Even starting off applying for the Impact Accelerator, when I saw that, Denise was leading it, I was like, that's the sort of accelerator that I need to be in. Like, I need to be in an accelerator with someone who has been there, who has done this successfully, who, will be super smart and but also caring and empathetic for what we're going through as well, because of those ups and downs, because you wear multiple hats. And then also, so many of us were parents of multiple children. So we're trying to build these businesses, keep our self-esteem up, raise our little kings and queens, keep going, so much. And so having a program that's there for us throughout all of that was just hugely impactful for us with those challenges.
Thank you, Dr. Tope. And Denise, if you'd like to add anything, I know that you've watched so many founders go through the program. And so any challenges that you'd like to highlight?
Yeah, I mean, I think, both Emmanuel and Tope kind of summarized it really well. One thing Tope mentioned a little bit is that, I have done this before. This program is so personal to me, just on multiple reasons. And, if I had a program like this, or even knew that there was a team within a large company like Amazon that focuses on startups, it would have got me to market so much faster. And I think that those were some of the challenges we were facing, right? What's interesting about this, what we look for with Impact Accelerator is that this is not a charity, right? We're not just giving out money. We were looking for individuals that were really building something amazing. like Reflekt Me and ChurchSpace, but they were often counted out, right? And they never could get those meetings. And so those were some of the biggest challenges. Not that they didn't have revenue, not that they didn't have customers. The founders that we selected in the program had actually much more traction than we see some of their non-Black startup founders, raise money off of nothing, right? Just off of an idea sitting at a coffee shop. And oftentimes, that this just is not the reality for Black founders. Also, we know from data that oftentimes Black founders and women founders and LGBTQ founders are building products that are solving problems in their communities. And so if the investor landscape is straight white men, they don't understand those communities. They don't understand those challenges. And so it makes it even tougher for Black founders to have a conversation with an investor and explain why, AI for wigs is important to Black women, right? And we know that there's a startup that just raised a ton of money called Parfait that's doing that, right? But it took her a minute to explain why that was super important. They just didn't get it. So I do think that it's a matter of responsibility we have. And, while I understand Emmanuel's point about he doesn't consider it taxing, it can be, right? Because sometimes we just want to build our business, right? We just want to be recognized for what we're doing. And that often isn't the reality. And so for us at AWS, a big part of this program for us is not looking at this as a charity, but looking at it as an opportunity for us to use our privilege to introduce founders that are building amazing businesses to contacts and investors that we know would listen if we pick up the phone and call. So to me, I think those were some of the biggest challenges that we were hoping to solve with the program.
Very good. Thank you so much for that, Denise. Yeah, you kind of got into what I meant around the tax. Sometimes you just want to walk in the room and just be who you are in your fullness and not have that extra set of responsibility. But I also understand Emmanuel's point, which is it's a collective way that we have to move. As African Americans, as Black people, especially in the United States, we've always had to move collectively. You can't leave others behind. You have to share information. So I also understand your point, Emmanuel. Okay, well, we're going to move into our final question. I would like each of you to answer this question. And then, Denise, I'm going to turn to you to wrap us up. So our final question, I want you all to just take the space to provide any closing advice that you would provide to other Black startup founders who are on the same journey that you're on. Let's start with you first, Dr. Tope.
Okay, I would say that there are choices that you can make as a founder. There are spaces that you can live in your mind, right? So there's the space, there's the gap in between where you are now and your goals for the future. And there's a lot of anxiety living in that space, being unsure of what's going to happen next. But you can also live in the space of the present and then the past. And that's like what's gotten you, being grateful for where you are now and what you've accomplished now, and who you've been able to help and impact now and today. And so I'm working very hard to live in that space. And that's where I've been trying to, talk to other founders about living in that space, because when we've thought about the fact that, we put this little button, right? We're B2B SaaS, put this little button on the site. 70% of people who saw it clicked it. 70% of those people said, I feel seen, I feel beautiful, I feel important. And that's huge. And so trying to live in that space rather than saying, I haven't raised $2 million, right? So will I ever raise $2 million, right? Like that sort of thought. So that's what I would say for founders is that it's so stressful to do this. There's so many ups and downs, but just choose to live in that space of gratefulness and where you are now and what you've come through to get to where you are today, because you've lived through everything you went through in the past. So you'll live through what's coming up in the future.
Very good. Very good. And Emmanuel.
Yeah, I love that, Dr. Tope. Thanks for that. I think along the same lines, not allowing for some of the inevitable discouragement to make you count yourself out. I think during the Impact Accelerator, we talked a lot about imposter syndrome, which is something I think particularly in Black communities, we all deal with on a regular basis. And not allowing for the discouragement of others to make you feel like what you're building is insignificant, because that can be a real thing.
Okay, thank you, Emmanuel. And Denise, would you like to contribute to this question?
Yeah, I would probably just say the biggest takeaways are, a little bit of what Tope and Emmanuel just said, but if there's any race that knows how to navigate and combat biases and to still stick with something and continue to move forward, it's Black people by far. And so I want to ensure that we as a community look at it as a true community and not a competition. I think it's so important, and something we were intentional with this program is to ensure that the startups that we selected, they weren't feeling like they were competing with each other, is that they're really focusing on working with each other and building a strong community. And so we have a responsibility to look back and bring others up, and set examples. That's part of the challenge, is that we often don't see those, $500 million raised startups led by Black people. And so we don't have those examples to kind of go and say, hey, how did you do this? And so I think it's just a level of ensuring that we have a tight community and that we work together and not against each other, and to not give up, right? It is very, very easy to feel discouraged by all the no's, but it takes one yes. And so we just have to keep marching forward to ensure that we get that yes.
Very good. Denise, as we wrap, can you please share with us any thoughts or insights on how other Black founders can get involved?
Yeah, so I would definitely say I'm available. I'm always happy to talk to startup founders. So they certainly can reach out to me on LinkedIn. And then AWS Startups, we have our Impact Accelerator program. We also have a whole host of other accelerator programs. So if they're building something in fintech, or if they're building something in ed tech, so we have a whole host of other programs that we can support them with. And then of course, there's our AWS Activate program, where startups that get into the Activate program, it's free to sign up. They can get up to $1 million in resources, part of the Activate program. Within the startups org, we contribute $1 billion a year to AWS Activate, supporting startups. So we're agnostic on what you're building. We just want to really help startup founders take their idea to scale. So feel free to reach out to me, or look at our website, or sign up for AWS Activate.
Very good. Well, Dr. Tope, Emmanuel, just want to thank you for your tenacity, for your courageousness, for all that you're doing, both in your own business, but then also to pay it forward to other Black founders. We also want to thank you on behalf of AWS for being a part of our inaugural Impact Accelerator program. So thank you. And to you, Denise, for your vision, for sticking with knowing that this is something that we need to do here at AWS and seeing it through. Just want to really thank you and congratulate you for a job well done. With that, for everyone who's out there listening, please go to our website, look at more, learn more about the AWS Impact Accelerator program and everything that it has to offer. We do hope that you've learned some really important things today. And we thank you so much for joining us. Have a good day.